The NBA playoffs are about to start. Well, they're actually underway already with the play-in games. It officially starts with the series tomorrow. The last round of play-in games are tonight. March Madness just ends. College football is about to go to a 12-team playoff. Most of us agree that while March Madness is the most exciting postseason there is, the NBA playoffs is probably the worst postseason there is. And the reason for that is you almost always know who's going to win in the NBA. There's less element of surprise in the NBA than any other sport out there. More element of surprise in March Madness than any other sport out there. My question to you guys is, do you think a 12-team college football playoff will be more like March Madness or more like the NBA playoffs? And that 12-team playoff starts in 2024. The poll question's up right now. Please go to Twitter and vote if you can. Right now, we have 11 votes so far. 73% say March Madness. 27.3% say the NBA playoffs. Here's the truth. And Travis has said it. And he's right. It's going to be more like the NBA, guys. It's going to be more like the NBA playoffs. If you think a 12-team college football playoff is going to expand the field for smaller schools to sneak through and go win a national title, you're smoking something. Those smaller schools are going to look like TCU when they played Georgia last year. That's what's going to happen. Now, Josh Pate, I'm going to give him a shout out because he brought up a great point maybe a month ago with how this is going to play out. There will be lower seeds potentially sneaking through and winning a national title in college football. They're not going to be the lower seeds you think, though. With the way the playoff is going to go, it's going to give preference to conference champions and things like that. I think that will lead to 12 seeds and 11 seeds being powerhouse programs in the SEC that may have lost 2 or 3 games that in any other era would not have even sniffed the national championship for college football, but have the talent to go all the way and win it all. So you're not going to see 11th seeded Coastal Carolina sneak through and win it all, but you might see 12th seeded Alabama win it all, and they get the 12th seed because maybe they finished third in the SEC like they did last year at 10-2. The college football playoff, more than anything, what it does, and this is the funny thing, because there's this conspiracy out there that the powers that be and the power players want to silence out and shut down smaller schools and only allow the big schools a seat at the table. Well, guys, you're right about that. The thing you miss is the college football playoff only does that further, because now you have a bunch of the big schools having a seat at the table, and you have 1 or 2 smaller schools in the playoff, and this is a way for them to shut everybody up when those 2 small schools get beat significantly every year. Maybe pull off an upset like once every blue moon, and then lose badly the next week. That's how that's going to happen. You're not going to see a round of Cinderellas. And Travis says, I can only pray a team like UCF gets in and gets murdered. Yeah, see, a UCF, exactly. What they would do is they might win 1 game against an SEC school. You can always point out to, oh my God, Boise State beat Oklahoma in 2006, and UCF beat Auburn in 2017. Weren't those great? No, they weren't. Auburn didn't care to be playing UCF in that game because they had just lost the SEC title game and thought they could have gotten in the playoffs had they won. They were not happy about playing in that game. Boise State playing Oklahoma was the flukiest win of all time. That's not going to happen on a regular basis. And again, that wasn't a national championship game. It was Boise State's national championship game. That's not going to happen regularly, guys, in college football. It's just not. Okay? Mr. Jones says the SEC will dominate still. We could have an all-SEC Final Four. Mr. Jones, I agree with you. The thing that people forget about the playoff, they wanted the playoff to lessen the SEC's undue influence. You're only going to increase it, guys. The SEC's that loaded. They're going to get 3, maybe 4 teams in the playoff one year, and those 4 teams might be in the Final Four. Then what happens? You can't complain. You can't say there's something rigged in favor of the SEC. You can't do that. So I don't think people realize. I think college football was better when it was spread out across the country and there was not a playoff, because you had a chance for lesser schools to sneak through and win it. What this is doing is exposing how dominant the SEC actually is, and it will continue to expose that. David John says more like the NFL playoffs. No, David, it's not. And I'll tell you why. NFL, even though I've talked about this before, that football as a sport has less randomness in deciding the outcome than any other sport, but there's still randomness. The NFL, on the other hand, has the most randomness because there's so much parity. There's not much of a gap between teams in the NFL. There's a huge gap between teams in college football. The NFL, you can see wildcard teams sneak through and win it all. Happens all the time. The Giants weren't a wildcard team, but they were 9-7 and they went and won it all in 2011. You don't see that in college football. You're not going to see that. You're not going to see these smaller schools win it all. You're just not. You're never going to see them win more than one game. It's not going to happen. And TCU lost 65-7 in a pathetic championship game. Mr. Jones says, I agree. Totally agree. Only delaying the inevitable. Mr. Jones says 2 SEC championships instead of 1. Yep. SEC a league of their own. Yep. Travis, if an 8-seed OSU defeats a 2-seed Georgia and makes the Final Four, the media will implode with joy. No, you're right. Even funnier than that, if an 8-seed beats a 2-seed, they're going to pretend like it's an upset. Like, oh, look at this 8-seed beating the 2-seed. That's not an upset. It's an 8-seed blue blood program, if you will. This is what March Madness does all the time, and it drives me crazy. They sometimes set up games for upsets where they'll have a team that does not deserve to be a 4-seed and make them a 4-seed, and a team that was much better than a 13-seed and make them a 13-seed. Also, they can have the game set up where the 13 beats the 4, and they can say, look at how great this tournament is. The 13-seed upset the 4-seed. That's not really how that should work, and that's what they're going to try to do here. A couple other quotes real quick. Let's see what we're looking at. SEC equals superior to every conference. That was Mr. Jones. John Hill, 4-team SEC championship playoff. Yeah, like, again, if you got 4 teams from the SEC in the Final Four, that makes the SEC championship look totally random and arbitrary. Am I right? That just doesn't really look, it's not going to look right. I think this is going to be people that are excited about the 12-team playoff thinking that it's going to look more like March Madness are crazy. That's not going to happen. Walt Williams says, nice job, very professional, great content. Thank you, Walt. Really appreciate that. Told you, if you give me a compliment, I will accept it and I will read it. But as far as the playoff goes, I still think the playoff is going to be exciting. I think it's going to be more exciting than March Madness. I said that because you are going to get elite teams facing off against each other. And this is something we've wanted for a while. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But it's not going to be more exciting than March Madness for the same reason March Madness is exciting. It's going to be more exciting because you get the best teams facing off, and you will have it set up where, yes, you'll see some blowouts, but the way it's set up, you will still see great football games, and the upsets won't be cheapened. It'll be to a level where when there is an upset, it's actually an upset. Now, I say it'll be closer to the NBA playoffs. It won't be exactly like it. With a 7-game series in the NBA playoffs, the better team always wins. But where it will be like it is, like, for instance, the Lakers are a 7 seed this year. Everybody knows the Lakers are a 3 or 4 seed caliber, a top 4 caliber seed team in the West. They just had injuries all year. This is like when Houston was a 6 seed in 94, 95 and won it all. That's what you're going to see a lot with the college football playoff. David John says 2011 was 12 years ago. NY was never a Cinderella, just like a 12th seed SEC won't be a Cinderella. Who was NY, David? Can you flesh that out? New York's in my mind. When was New York was never Cinderella? If you could just re-comment on that. Sorry, I was a little confused. But you're right. You are right in the gist. A 12 seed SEC seed won't be a Cinderella. They're going to try to brand it as such, and that's going to be the only type of Cinderellas. And quite honestly, you're going to see more dominance, not less, from the power schools. Just more will have a seat at the table. And whenever you're not going to get a Florida Atlantic playing for the national championship game. This is not going to happen, guys. So just accept that. You will still have some excitement. Now, the reason it'll be exciting is the way they're setting it up. And I do like the way they're setting it up. The top 4 conference champions, and then the next 4, and then the next 8 play each other. I would say this. because you're doing the top 6 conference champions overall, I think the 2 conference champions that don't get a first round bye, which is going to include a group of 5 school to make it more competitive, should get automatic home games, get the automatic closer to campus venue games when that first weekend. Oh, okay. You said the Giants. You were talking about the Super Bowl. The Giants were never a Cinderella. I mean, come on. They kind of were, though. They kind of were. Look at Eli Manning's career. Look at Tom Coughlin's career. Those weren't good teams. They just got red hot. Now, the first Super Bowl was even luckier. Eli Manning closing his eyes and the ball sticking in David Tyree's face mask. Eli Manning has 2 Super Bowl runs. Eli Manning has 2 red-hot Super Bowl runs that have saved his legacy. Otherwise, he's a mediocre quarterback for his whole career. So, I got to be honest with you guys. The Giants were kind of a Cinderella. And Mr. Jones, 128, 18-1. 18-1. What are you talking about with 18? Oh, college football. Yeah, or NFL. Excuse me. I think you're referring to the Patriots. 18-1. Yeah, that was actually 2007 though when the Patriots went undefeated. Who thought the Patriots were better than the Giants? I mean, who thought the Giants were better than the Patriots? They weren't. Okay, that was the flukiest game. He has the flukiest career of all time. Come at me, Ole Miss fans. Come at me right now. I'm ready. It was the flukiest, luckiest career in the history of football. I would not put Eli Manning in the Hall of Fame. There, I said it. But I will say that the college football playoff is going to look more like the NBA playoffs, guys. It is. It's not going to solve the problem. And then it's going to be annoying when people say there's not enough bad teams getting in, so let's expand it to 24 teams and have 10 group of 5 teams get in. It's still not going to solve the problem. The gap in talent in college football is too significant. And while the teams that get the gap changes, there will always be that gap. And so that's the issue. So, guys, it's just going to look more like the NBA playoffs in the end. Portions of the program brought to you by Andy Mason Real Estate, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. AndyMasonRealEstate.com is a way for you to save a lot of money, thousands on thousands of dollars. He's been in the business for 40 years. His group is unbelievable. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. You will get the best prices. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Mr. Jones says last name is what will get him there, not first. Talking about Eli, last name in the Super Bowls, because for some reason we overvalue Super Bowls and championships in this society, even though it's a team sport. Travis Case said no first round buys, and top 6 should play on the road, first round home advantage in the second. I mean, you kind of have to have first round buys if you have 12 teams, though. I guess if you go to 8, that would be different. But yeah, I think you have to have 12. You have to have a first round bye. John says, Caleb, one of the best things I like about you is that you are a realist like me. Thank you, John. I try to be fair. I try to be realistic. And all of my opinions are right.